With the somewhat success of Big World Big Adventures and Series 22 aka Big World Big Adventures, Mattel wasted no time in releasing Series 23 of Thomas and Friends, which began to air on 18th of May 2019 in the US and the 2nd of September in 2019 in the UK. Like Series 22, this series was once again split into two halves, one half with Thomas travelling around the world and one half taking place in the island of Sodor. Along with more episodes set in the previously visited China, India and Australia, Thomas also visited two more countries, Italy and Brazil. So after reviewing Series 22 last year, what are my thoughts on Series 23 of the show? It's a slight improvement from the last series, but it still suffers from most of the same problems from the last one. The bouncing of the engines is very cartoony and unrealistic, especially when you consider the classic series when there was no bouncing from the engines. Aside from the odd shuddering of engines like say Daisy and Gordon from time to time. And a majority of the episodes where Thomas goes to other countries aren't that interesting, and the Sodor ones are the ones that usually shine the most. And despite introducing some new characters to the series from the other countries, we still don't get background characters that look like engines that would have represented the different countries. And speaking of which, let's talk about the new characters. We have Gabrielle, a small tank engine who works in Brazil. She is a fast-talking, fun-loving engine who enjoys sharing her knowledge about the culture and railways of Brazil. She became friends with Thomas while he was working in Brazil. She is very passionate about her home country and especially enjoys carnival time. Gabrielle is always cheerful and is a great friend to know when travelling through Brazil. And I love the design of this little tank engine. It looks quite cute when you look at the original basis that she was based on, and she is quite honestly one of the funnest characters I've seen in the show in recent years. There's Gustavo, a large electric engine who works in the Brazilian railway. He takes great pride in pulling the express in Brazil. At first glance, he may seem like a pompous engine like Gordon, but is actually a very caring and cautious engine who only wants his fellow engine friends to do a good job and does his best to keep them out of harm's way. And it's very rare that we get engines on Thomas the Tank Engine that are electric, like him. Like a lot of engines you see nowadays in the different countries, like say Brazil or even Switzerland, they're often run by electric cables that run over the lines. This is the first time we get to see that in the show, and I think that makes for very interesting world exploring. This was the first time in the show that Andrew Brenner didn't return to write any episodes for it, and it really shows. There's way too much unrealism and cartoony antics going on in the episodes, which was not what the original show was about. And as you'd imagine, various episodes don't really hold up that well. Like Gordon Gets the Giggles is kind of ridiculous, because we've seen Gordon laugh at a few things various times before, but in this episode he just randomly decides that it's not dignified for a big engine like him to laugh. Why was that ever a trait for him before? And Panicky Percy is an episode that I really don't like watching, because Percy causes confusion and delay by panicking when he thinks Thomas has had an accident. I mean, we know Percy and Thomas are best friends and all, but did they really have to make Percy this panicky? They've been separated from each other before, and Percy never had a heart attack in most times. While there are a lot of bad episodes in this series, there are some good ones as well. Like Free the Road is a great reintroduction to Bulgy the Bus, since they built him up in Series 21 as having a big role, and here we finally get it. And it's great to see him back to his old tricks where he's trying to take over the roads and take the passengers away from the railways. It's just a really good return for this character. And Chucklesome Trucks is a guilty pleasure of mine because I quite like the flashbacks to the various accidents that Thomas, Percy and James had with trucks. Even though they could have done a better job recreating the scenes they were in. Heart of Gold is a really nice episode for me as well, because I love how Toby has to chase two robbers from stealing Godred's crown. And I can't get enough of Millie's cute little snore. Five Rangers of the Rails is a really sweet episode because I like how it pictures Emily with Nia. I just find it really nice to see these characters in an episode together. And of course we did get the return of Jack and the Pag for this series as well. They got various episodes on Sodor to themselves, as well as appearing in those Rome episodes that I brought up in last Thomascember. The one thing that has improved from the series though is the animation style. They've updated the appearance of the engines by giving them their rivets. Yeah, from the Classic series onwards, the engines have never had rivets, but this became a new thing when they brought back the narrow gauge engines in the CGI series, and when they updated Rosie. And in this series they decided to do it with every character. When they used the models, they couldn't put as much detail in the riffets like they could nowadays because the models wouldn't be big enough for it. But with CGI technology, they were able to add that little bit of realism to the engines. Like they actually came from the real-life railways. So Series 23 suffers from the same problems that Series 22 has, and it's a series that I honestly wouldn't go back to watching all the time like I would the classic series. But you can find some good episodes in it, like the ones I mentioned, so I would recommend talking about some of the good episodes like Free the Road, Chuckle Trucks, Heart of Gold, and the Jack in the Pack episodes, and skip the rest of it. So yeah, it's a slight improvement from Series 22, but it's honestly not a series that I would go back and watch a million times over and over again like I did with the classic series. Loved by children maybe, but not my cup of tea. And I'm sure it's not the classic series fans' cup of tea either. So I would definitely skip it.